To discuss legislation I introduced or reintroduced this week. It is focused on both investing in Ohio's communities now, while also planning for the future. As Ohio Department of Natural Resources Director Jim Zerriger recently stated, Ohio is on the onset of a new boom in relation to Utica shale drilling. The advancement of drilling technology has positioned Ohio to be a major player in the oil and natural gas industry, and the early results are already stunning. The 45 Utica shale wells that were in the production stage at the beginning of this year are producing enough natural gas to equal 40% of what's being produced by the 64,000 existing vertical wells in Ohio. The increase in gas and oil activity in our states, and especially in the most impoverished area of our state, brings with it the promises of new jobs and the opportunity for many of those families or individuals who need help the most. However, as the technology of drilling has modernized, so must our efforts to reinvest in our communities. And so I am proposing a 7.5% severance tax be enacted for oil, natural gas, and condensate extracted by horizontal drilling. This rate brings Ohio closer in line with other major shale states such as Oklahoma, Texas, and North Dakota, whose severance taxes range from 7% to 11.5%, and who collect anywhere from hundreds of millions to billions of dollars in revenue each year. In fact, PolitiFact recently found that at current prices, Texas tax on oil will yield more than 20 times what Ohio's current per barrel tax yields. Thus, it is clear that Ohio needs to update its severance tax rate to ensure that our precious natural resources are not extracted without proper, appropriate compensation seen in other states. The revenue raised by the severance tax will first and foremost be reinvested in the communities that have suffered from drastic cuts in education and local government funds over the past several budget cycles. 5% of the 7.5% will be allocated to local governments, with a greater proportion of the money going to the counties most impacted by horizontal drilling activity. Next, a portion of the severance tax revenue will be diverted to conservation and environmental priorities related to fracking. 1.5% of the 7.5% will help ODNR hire, train, and operate additional well inspectors, supplement the ODNR orphan well capping fund, and supplement the EPA's immediate removal fund. With great opportunity comes great responsibility, and we should not rush to embrace new jobs and revenue without recognizing the serious environmental risks that accompany this technology. Finally, we must plan for the long-term health of our state for the point in time when our natural resources are depleted and the oil and gas companies move back out of the state, and we are faced with a skilled workforce whose skills are no longer in demand. So this bill will create a severance tax trust fund in which 1% of the 7.5% severance tax will be designated for investment. This money will be invested by a board of financial experts and be allowed to grow off limits to the General Assembly until the year 2020. After that point, the legislature may appropriate a small percentage of the average investment earnings to provide money for economic diversification, projects, education, workforce development, federal matching grants, and higher education. By designating a small percentage of severance tax revenue for a permanent trust fund, Ohio can create an economic legacy from our natural resources and provide funds critical of the survival of our state's economy long after our non-renewable resources are depleted. As I mentioned, the last two budgets this legislature passed have gutted education funding and the resources that local governments use to pay for vital services such as police and fire, and our communities are hurting because of it. I've introduced this severance tax plan as an amendment to the budget, both when it was being debated in the House and now as it is in the conference committee. However, should my amendment not be accepted, I felt it was important enough to introduce the plan as a standalone bill in hopes of furthering the discussion. The oil and natural gas being extracted from beneath our feet are limited natural resources that we will never get back. We must ensure that Ohio is not giving away its resources freely to the oil and gas industry without demanding appropriate return on investment.